David Bennett closed the dishwasher and checked the oven timer. He had turned off the chicken breast an hour ago, but the oven was still warm. The tin of garnish was still on the counter, covered with foil. Laura had texted at 6 that she would be late. It was now 9:15. The daughter, Mia, was sitting at the table with her laptop. She was looking at social studies assignments and texting a friend. Headphones were hanging around her neck. "Have you eaten?" David asked. "Yes, I took some chicken. It's delicious. Is Mom still not here?" "No," she wrote, another report. He tried to say it evenly. He didn't like how often that phrase was heard lately. Mia nodded without looking up. "We have a parent-teacher meeting tomorrow," she said, "at 6. Can you make it?" "Of course. And Mom?" She talked about an educational session at the hospital. "I don't know." David opened the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of water, and sat down across from her. A text from Mark, their neighbor, flashed on his phone. "Are you going to the Browns game this weekend?" David responded curtly, "I'll think about it." His attention returned to Mia. "How are things at school?" he asked. "Fine. Mrs. O'Neill said I could apply for the volunteer club. It's 3 hours a week. I want to volunteer at the hospital." "That's a good idea. Mom can give you some advice." Mia shrugged. Her mood had become more reserved in recent months. She retreated to her room more often, sharing less news. David attributed it to age, but sometimes he caught himself thinking that there was more to it than that. At 9:30, the door to the garage opened. Laura walked in quickly, put her bag on a chair, and took off her thin coat. The light from the kitchen reflected the glare in her glasses. She looked tired. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and there was a marker streak on her sleeve. "Hi," she said. "Sorry, it's been a rough day." "Hi," David replied. "I saved you some dinner. It's still warm." "Thank you." She opened the oven, inhaled, and smiled. "It smells like the corner restaurant." "I just added rosemary." He smiled back. "How was your day?" A new document check and one interview, and another security council. Laura put the meat on a plate and poured herself some water. Plus, an IT contractor came. "The old terminals are freezing again." "Again?" "Yes, but he and his guys are quick." She corrected herself. He and his team. Mia closed the laptop. "Mom, there's a meeting tomorrow. Can you make it?" "Tomorrow?" Laura paused. "We have a presentation of the employee support program tomorrow. I won't make it." "Sorry, Mia. Dave, will you go?" "I already said yes," David replied. "Thank you." Laura sighed. "I'll give you a printout of the schedule. If the teachers have any questions, please write them down. I'll write them a letter later." Fine. They dined in quiet peace. There were no arguments. But there was a feeling that someone had put a barrier of invisible things between them. Messages, calls, omissions. After dinner, Laura loaded the washing machine, then returned to the kitchen with her laptop. David washed mugs. "I'm going to the office," she said. "I need to answer the shift schedule. It's quick." "Certainly." She left. David wiped his hands and looked into the living room. Mia was already watching a video lesson on math. Her phone was lying face down. "Don't forget your football uniform," he said. "I'll put it in my backpack." David walked up the stairs. The dull sound of the washing machine could be heard from below. He passed the closed door of the study. The light was on. He heard Laura's voice, not a businesslike tone, quieter and softer. Maybe she was talking to Paula. He continued to the bedroom, changed his shirt for a t-shirt, and sat on the edge of the bed. The phone vibrated. Mark sent a photo of the tickets. David again responded vaguely. He couldn't get into the mood for the weekend. His head felt like his schedule had drifted apart. It was as if the family had two different lives. 20 minutes later, Laura walked into the bedroom. She was holding a phone in her hand. Seeing David reading the news, she put the phone on the dresser. "No. I'm looking at the schedule for tomorrow. Are you sure you won't make it?" "No. I'll try to at least get there by the end. But I can't promise." "Understood." She sat down next to him. Dave, I know the last few months have been weird, she said. Work's been swamped. The program's expanding. This is temporary. I understand, he replied. I don't want to make a scene. I just want us to be aware of each other's lives. We know, she said. You know Mia, I know Evan. She smiled, but it quickly faded. Okay, that sounds dry. Sorry, I'm really tired. Maybe I should take a vacation. After the report, Laura lay down and covered herself with a blanket. Let's talk tomorrow. I'll turn off the alarm early and make breakfast. No need, he said. I'll cook. She nodded, turned to the wall. The phone on the dresser blinked. David wasn't reading the messages. He stood up, turned off the light in the hallway, and came back. He woke up at night from a quiet signal. Laura picked up her phone, turned her back, and quickly typed something. David looked at his watch, 12:47. He didn't ask. He wanted to keep a calm tone. He turned over on his other side, tried to sleep. Sleep wouldn't come. The morning started early. David brewed coffee, toasted, sliced an apple. Mia came down in a sports jacket. Dad, I need to leave early. We have a team meeting. Okay? The sandwiches are on the table. Take them and put them in your backpack. Thank you. Laura came out later, her hair pulled back, a container of salad in her hand. I'll try to be home by 8 tonight, she said. If I'm late, I'll write. Right, David replied. She kissed him on the cheek, gave Mia a quick hug, and walked out. A car hummed in the garage. David watched them leave and closed the door. He had 40 minutes before work. He sat down at his desk, opened his laptop, checked his bills. His eyes fell on the operator's report. Dates, times, repeats. In recent weeks, one number has been repeated often. He didn't write it down. He closed the tab, stood up, and got out the trash bags. He didn't want to turn into a controller. But the feeling that he didn't understand something didn't go away. At lunchtime, David met Mark at a cafe near the office. They ordered soup and sandwiches. The TV on the wall showed the news. You look tired, Mark said. Night shifts? No, just a lot of things to do. Is Laura still in the hospital until tonight? Often. Mark nodded silently. Listen, he said carefully, if you want to take your mind off things, I already have tickets for the game. Sunday, let's grab a beer and talk about anything but work. I'll check Mia's schedule, David replied. Thank you. They talked about road repairs and a new store nearby. Mark didn't ask unnecessary questions. It was convenient. David returned to work, sorted out deliveries and schedules, and held a planning meeting. His team knew their business. He felt in control of the situation in the office and out of control at home. That evening, he went to a meeting at the school. The auditorium smelled of coffee and paper programs. The social studies teacher, Mrs. O'Neill, was talking about the project. Then the school counselor, Miss Carver, came over. Mia is responsible, but I would recommend paying attention to her sleep, she said. She seemed overtired several times. We're watching, David said. Thank you. I'll talk to her. On the way home, he turned on the radio. In the parking lot, he saw Laura's car. She had arrived before 8. It was unexpectedly pleasant. I blew the meeting, Laura said as he walked in. We rescheduled it for tomorrow. How did the meeting go? Not bad. Mia is great. They praise her. But they advise her to sit less at night. Let's talk to her. Laura took off her shoes and sat down on the couch. Dave, can I ask you to take Mia to practice tomorrow? I have a meeting in the afternoon. Certainly. They watched the evening news, then Laura went to take a shower. David collected the laundry in a basket and went to the laundry room. On the shelf was a thin folder with the hospital logo. He did not open it. He understood that boundaries were important. But in his head, the question still sounded, what was leaving their shared boundaries and who was entering them? Late in the evening, Laura went out onto the porch with a cup of tea. The yard was quiet. The neighbors had closed the gate. She sat down on the step. David sat next to her. I think we should plan a vacation, he said. At least 4 days. Lake Erie or Pittsburgh. Something simple. Good idea, Laura replied. Let's look at the dates after the report. In March. Cold. They sat in silence. Laura's phone vibrated again. She glanced at the screen. It's on the night shift schedule, she said, and quickly answered. Okay? He didn't check if it was true. He wanted to believe. But somewhere inside, another process was already underway. He began to pay attention to the little things. He began to remember. When they lay down, Laura put her phone on charge. David turned to her. Would you like to go to Mia's team meeting on Saturday? He asked. We have training on Saturday. I'll try to get an hour off. Don't move important things for this, he said. I'll be there. Thank you. She smiled and stroked his hand. It was familiar. It was right. But there was a distance between the gesture and the evening messages. David fell asleep around 2. He dreamed of the usual scenes: work, home, school. He woke to the alarm and thought that their life was like a spreadsheet with tasks. The tasks were being completed, but the spreadsheet had blank spaces. That morning, he texted Evan at college. How are you? His son responded quickly. All okay. Labs are tough. Love you. David smiled. It was informal and warm. He sent Mia a soccer ball emoji and a reminder to water. Then he put the kettle on and thought that today he would ask Laura when exactly after the report would end. He needed a date. He needed a plan. A new notification came to his phone. Account update. Details available. He didn't open it. He put the phone down on the table and began to cut an orange. He decided he would speak calmly and clearly. Without accusations. He wanted to save their family. But first he needed to understand what exactly they were saving. Laura parked the Camry on the 4th level of the hospital's parking garage and glanced at her watch. It was 7:48. New emails were burning in her inbox. She opened her calendar: interview at 10, meeting with the head nurse at 11:30, safety meeting at 2, call with the contractor at 4. In between, emails, shift schedules, responses to candidates. At the entrance to the administrative building, the security guard nodded to her out of habit. Good morning, Mrs. Bennett. Good day, James. The lights were already on in the HR department. Paula Hayes, her colleague, placed a box of badges for new employees on the table. You're just in time, Paula said. We have 2 nurses for orientation at 11, and they called from the emergency room. The terminal in the procedure room is frozen again. I saw the ticket. We have a slot with Scott at 4. He promised to send someone, Laura replied and turned on her work computer. How did the check go over the weekend? No surprises, but we were reminded again about mandatory de-escalation training. The administration wants us to do the update by the end of the month. Laura opened the spreadsheet. The training sheet contained names, statuses, and signature dates. Her department was responsible for compliance. Deadlines were moving slowly. We'll have to do 2 evening sessions, she said, and 1 on the weekend. Otherwise, we won't make it. They'll say it's inconvenient for them, Paula chuckled, but they're obliged to sign. Laura typed an email to the head nurse, Helen Baldwin, asking for an audience on Saturday. She sent it, sighed, and picked up a folder with an application from a candidate in Texas. She loved the part of the job where everything was transparent. The application, the checks, the rate approval. In recent weeks, there had been more that was opaque. Staffing shortages, conflicts between shifts, technical glitches. At 10 o'clock, a candidate came to her, a short woman of about 45, with a neat folder and clear speech. The questions were standard: experience in emergency medicine, ability to work with electronic charts, readiness for night shifts. Laura wrote down, asked for clarifications. We have a tough workload, she said honestly. We don't promise it will be easy, but we have established teams and clear rules. Will that work for you? I need stability, the woman replied. I'm ready to work. After the interview, Laura sent her resume to the head of the department. Paula dropped by with 2 glasses of coffee. A 5-minute break? She asked. Let's. They went down to the cafeteria on the first floor. The baristas at the counter already knew their orders. Interns sat in the corner with laptops. A nurse was on break by the window, looking at her phone. How are you at home? Paula asked without preamble. They had been friends for long enough not to ask about common things. It's fine, Laura replied. Mia's busy with school. David took over the meeting. I didn't have time. You often don't have time, Paula said softly. You know that yourself. Yes, but this quarter is tough. It will get easier after the report. You said that in the spring, Paula noted, and then added, I'm not butting in. I just don't want you to burn. Laura nodded. She didn't want to discuss home and work in the same conversation, but Paula would still hear if things went badly. Okay, Paula said, changing the subject. Will Scott be there in person today, or will he send a guy from his team? He wrote that he did it himself. They have a new release for terminals. We need to go through 2 departments. He asked for access to the server room and to the stand in the trauma department. Paula raised her eyebrows. Manually again? Yes. For now, that's it. Their network update is laggy. They returned to the department. Laura signed 2 letters on internships, coordinated with accounting a change in the phlebotomist's rate, and responded to a request for compensation. At 11:30, Helen arrived. They briefly discussed a disciplinary matter with one of the night nurses who had been late 3 times in a row. Helen was annoyed that HR was demanding written explanations. Laura explained that they had to have papers. I need a working shift, Helen said, not a paper trail. I understand, but if we want to issue a warning or fire someone later, we need facts, Laura answered calmly. I can help with a plan for correction. Let's set clear goals, deadlines, and signatures. Helen agreed. They made an appointment with the nurse for the following week. At 2 o'clock, Laura sat in a security meeting. The conference room smelled of coffee and vending machine cookies. The risk manager handed out reports. They discussed patient falls, data entry errors, problems accessing the system on the night shift. Access goes offline again in trauma, the young doctor said. We're wasting time logging in. That's for it, the administrator replied. There should be an update today. I know, Laura said. Scott is here at 4. We'll assign responsibilities and deadlines. The meeting dragged on for half an hour. Laura went out and checked her phone. There was a message from David. The meeting went well. Mia is training. I'll be making pasta. She wrote, Thank you. I'm late. Have dinner without me. She felt bad writing this, but she knew she would be late. At 3:55, Scott Walker appeared in the lobby at the reception desk. Next to him was a bag of tools. His name tag read, Scott Walker, contractor. He was tall, had short hair, and was in his early 40s. He greeted us briefly, without much of a smile. Hello. We have 2 points, trauma and server, he said in a businesslike tone, plus a request from pediatrics. They have old-style terminals there. Let's go in order, Laura replied. First, the injury. I warned the eldest. They went down to the first floor. The was filled with the usual noise. A gurney by the door, someone talking on the phone, a nurse taking notes. Scott checked the counter, removed a cover for something, plugged in a flash drive, and quickly typed a command. It'll take about 10 minutes, he said. The system will update and reboot. Laura stood nearby to answer questions about the schedule. The head nurse approached them. We need a stable entrance, she said without greeting. We lose access at night. We're putting in a new bag, Scott replied. It'll be better tonight. I'll put it in the report, Laura said. If the problem persists, you write a ticket and we'll call the night duty officer. Scott finished the first terminal and moved on to the second. He worked quietly, without much chatter. But when they reached the hallway, he looked at Laura more closely than usual. You've had a long day today, he said. You've been here since 8? Since 8, she answered. And you? Since 7. but I live 20 minutes from here. The garage closes at 9. I have to make it. The administrative garage is open until 11, Laura said. If anything, I can let you in through our entrance. Thank you. I hope I won't need it. They went up to the server room. The administrator gave them access. It was cool inside. Scott connected to the panel, checked the log. He spoke quietly but clearly. We changed the driver in October. This caused a conflict with the login cards. I will roll back. This is a temporary solution. We need a written explanation for the report, Laura said. No technical details, just the gist and the timing. I'll send it to you this evening, he replied. To your email? Yes. He finished, turned off the monitor, and looked at his watch. Will we make it to the pediatrics window? Yes, but quickly. In pediatrics, they were met by the head, Dr. Mason. She was not happy. The children's block often required special attention. Scott updated again, checked again, and promised to return again if necessary. As they stepped out into the corridor, it began to rain outside. Drops of rain hit the glass. Laura looked at her phone. 5:42. Messages from Paula. Don't forget to sign the forms. And from Helen. Saturday audience confirmed. Thank you for making it before 6, Laura said. Send the report. I will, Scott replied. Do you have 5 minutes? I want to check the entrance to the trauma room. They complained of a freeze. Let's do it quickly. They returned to the emergency room. Scott made it in 4 minutes. The lobby was empty. Laura adjusted her badge. If there's a breakdown tonight, write to me, she said. I'll transfer you to the duty service. Do you have your number? He asked. I always went through the general ticket. Give me your phone, I'll send you a work one, Laura replied. She dictated the number and a test message arrived. This is Scott, test, for work. Okay, she said. Work-related matters only. We have a strict policy. Understand. They walked to the stairs. It was raining outside. Scott opened the door. Do you have an umbrella? No, Laura answered. But the car is in the garage. I'll take you to the entrance, he said. I have a spare in my bag. No need, she waved it off and immediately changed her mind. Okay, thank you. They walked to the crossing under an umbrella. There was nothing special about it. But Laura felt a familiar feeling trigger inside her when he said, I'll take you there. Not romantic. More like the attention she missed at home. She pushed the thought away. She was at work. This was a contractor. She knew her limits. They stopped at the entrance to the administrative building. Thanks for the update, she said in a businesslike tone. I'm waiting for the report. Yes, I'll send it before 9, he replied. If anything, right. She went up to the 4th floor and entered the department. Paula was collecting papers in the closet. Well, she asked. Updated. Let's see how it goes tonight. He'll send a report. Who is he? Scott. I see. Paula looked at Laura carefully. Are you okay? Yes. She just got up. Go home, Paula said. I'll close the department. We'll continue tomorrow. Laura turned off the monitor, closed the laptop, and picked up her bag. As she walked, she texted David, left, be there in 30 minutes. He replied, okay, we're having dinner. The pasta was good. She felt a little guilty and looked away from the screen. The garage was damp. The car's wet sides glistened. Laura got into the Camry and turned on the heater. Her phone vibrated. An email from Scott arrived with a short description. Driver rollback. Temporary solution until next release. Monitor for a week. Below was an attachment with a log and screenshots. The technical information looked neat. Laura forwarded the email to the administrator and made a note in her spreadsheet. On the way, she turned on the local radio. Work tasks were spinning in her head. She didn't stop at the store. They had enough food at home. She thought about what she would tell David. She didn't want another conversation where, after the report was heard. She needed a specific date. She realized that she had been putting this date off for months. At home, the kitchen smelled of tomato sauce. David had washed the pots and left a plate on the warming table for Laura. There was a note on the table. Mia and I are watching the game. Get some pasta, heat it up, it'll be delicious. It was simple and neat. It stung. In the bedroom, she changed, returned to the kitchen, and put a plate in the microwave. Her phone vibrated again. Scott, confirmation that the email got through, she wrote. It did. Thanks. He wrote back, if anything comes up during the night, I'll be there. She turned the phone face down. At dinner, she tried to talk to Mia about school. She asked about the volunteer club, about the weekend plan. Mia answered willingly. David did not ask unnecessary questions. It was calm. Late in the evening, Laura opened her laptop to finish writing the training plan. She wrote, Saturday 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, Tuesday 18:30. She sent it to all the department heads. She set the alarm for 6:15. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling for a long time. She knew she had crossed a small line when she had given Scott the number directly, even though it was technically for work. She knew she appreciated the attention. She knew she should talk more at home, not get lost in her phone and spreadsheets. She told herself again, after the report. But there was no exact date. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. The phone blinked at 12:11. A message from the night shift. Login stable. Thank you. She replied, acknowledged, and switched the phone to silent mode. Beside her, David was breathing quietly. In the morning, they had to discuss Mia's schedule. She knew that talking about family couldn't wait any longer. And yet, inside her, a to-do list was spinning, with homework items slipping down again. Saturday started early. David carried the last of the boxes labeled Evan Dorm out to the car. They contained pillows, twin XL sheets, an electric kettle, an extension cord, a 3-piece cookware set, a roll of tape, and a small tool kit. In the trunk were 2 bags of clothes, a plastic container with writing and marker, and a black backpack with a university sticker. That's it, he asked his son. Almost. I still need an extension cord for the router, Evan said, looking into the box of wires. Although, okay, I'll get one later at the campus store. Laura walked out onto the path with a thermos and a paper bag. I made sandwiches for the road, she said, and fruit. It's a 3-hour drive, plus a stop. Thanks, Mom, Evan said, a little embarrassed by the concern. He was taller than his father, thin, and wearing a baseball cap with a university logo. Shall we go? Check-in is from 12 to 2. The Highlander smelled of clean plastic and coffee. Mia was home, having a training session and a volunteer meeting. The 3 of them pulled onto I-71 toward Columbus. The sky was clear. The radio played a local station softly. Did you get the vaccine confirmation? Laura asked, leafing through the list. Yes, in the blue folder. And the insurance too. Evan reached for his phone. I texted Tyler that we'd be there at 1. He's already there. Is this your neighbor? David asked. Yes, from Cincinnati. He went to engineering school. Seems okay. We were chatting. The road stretched out in a straight line. David watched the speed and the GPS. Laura answered work messages a couple of times. The phone rang quietly. Is this the night shift writing again? David asked, not taking his eyes off the road. No, Laura answered shortly. The administrator is asking for a report on training, and it sent an update that the night went smoothly. It is Scott? David asked, his voice calm. Yes. He sent a general file. Laura put her phone down. I'll send it all to Helen after lunch. Evan, who was sitting in the back, leaned forward. Do you mind if I connect my console in the dorm? There is a shared TV, but a separate monitor would be better. Do as you please, David said. Just not until 3 in the morning. Okay, Evan smiled. It's a quiet floor, by the way. I signed the rules. An hour and a half later, they pulled into a service plaza on the highway. The parking lot was filled with trucks and minivans with university stickers. Inside, it was crowded. A line at Subway, a noisy coffee shop, water dispensers. Who wants what? David asked. I'll have coffee and oatmeal, Laura said. There are sandwiches, but I wouldn't mind an apple. I'll take a burrito, Evan said, and a bottle of water. They found a table by the window. David brought coffee and water. Evan opened his phone to show a list of priorities. Get student ID, pick up key envelopes, check in at RA, take out trash after unpacking. Listen, he said, don't stay until the evening. We have a block meeting at 6, then the gym, then the guys are going to the dorm. I don't want you to get bored. We won't cling to you, David replied. We'll help you unpack and then go. I'd also like to go to the bookstore, Laura added. I'll buy you some notebooks and a card reader. Mom, I'll buy it myself, Evan said softly. I have a card. Okay, Laura nodded and took a sip of coffee. Then let's just see where your classrooms are. Laura's phone vibrated. A message appeared on the screen. S. Walker, logs okay, will continue monitoring until Wednesday. She pressed OK and placed the phone face down. David noticed, but said nothing. Dad, Evan suddenly said, you were already working when you were my age, weren't you? Yes, in the campus cafeteria, and in the library too. David smiled, and by the way, that's not a bad option. I've already applied for 2 options, a media center and a sports complex, Evan said. If they accept it, I'll cover part of the costs. I'm proud, David said. Me too, Laura added. But don't overwhelm yourself. The first few months are tough. They finished their coffee and got back in the car. By 1:15, they had pulled up to campus. Volunteers in bright t-shirts were standing at the entrance, waving their hands, pointing the way. Music was playing from the speakers. There were tents on the lawns, welcome families, posters with the names of the dorms. Ours is Taylor Hall, Evan said, looking at the map. Parking on the left. They took a cart and stacked the boxes. The lobby was cool and smelled of cleaning fluid. A student with an Raw Kendra badge sat at the counter. She smiled without being overly smiling. Last name? She asked. Bennett, Evan. Room 412. Tyler, our neighbor, has already checked in. Here's the key, here's the rules sheet, here's the QR code for the floor chat. Come up, if you need help, call. The elevator was occupied, they went up the stairs. The corridors were narrow, the walls with notice boards. Door 412 was open. Inside stood a guy in a tank top, blonde hair, glasses. He was putting books on a shelf. Hey, are you Evan? He asked. I'm Tyler. Yes. Hello. These are my parents. Hello, David nodded. We'll be quick and quiet. Okay, I'm almost done. My mom went to get an extension cord. He put the box down. I'm from Cincinnati. We're from Cleveland, Laura said, looking around the room. 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared closet, a small refrigerator between the desks. Let's lay out the sheets. They moved quietly. David assembled the folding shelving unit, tightened the bolts. Laura laid out the linens, checked the mattress protector, and attached the hook to the door. Evan unpacked the laptop, checked the outlets, plugged in the extension cord. The bottled water, the chargers, the stickers on the boxes, everything was in its place. Normal, Evan said, assessing. Now I just need to go get a shower mat. I'll give you cash, Laura said, opening her wallet. Mom, no need. I have one. He smiled sheepishly and accepted the 20. Okay, thanks. At 2 o'clock, Kendra walked down the hallway offering trash bags. Block meeting at 6 in the lobby, she said. Don't be late. Parents can come for a campus tour at 3. We won't, David replied. I'll go alone, Evan said. You get some rest. They went down to the street. The sun came out, it was warm. Souvenirs were sold near the tent. Scarves, mugs, keychains. Laura bought a mug with a logo and put it in a bag. Let's grab a bite somewhere nearby, David suggested. I saw a cafe on the corner. Okay, Laura agreed. The cafe was noisy. Parents with children, students with laptops. They ordered salads and soup. They sat at a table by the wall. Laura looked at her watch. I think I'll step away for a minute. The administrator is asking to confirm the audience for Saturday, she said, and stood up with the phone. David stayed at the table. He watched parents smile at their children, someone argue about a schedule, one woman cry quietly while a man held her hand. It was normal. He felt a calm rise inside him. Evan was here, everything was going according to plan. But he also noticed Laura disappearing into her phone again. She returned 5 minutes later. That's it, I confirmed it. She sat down. Sorry. It's okay, said David. We'll stop at a gas station later and go. What time do you have it tomorrow? 8. She pushed her plate away. Dave, I know my phone annoys you. I'm trying to maintain boundaries. The phone doesn't irritate me, he said calmly. What scares me is that we postpone everything at home. I want a specific date. You said after the report. Name a week. Laura thought for a second. After the 25th, she looked straight ahead. Let's do it this way. From the 28th to the 30th, I take 2 days off. We went to the lake. Without laptops, I made the reservation. Okay, David said. We'll put it on the calendar. They ate in silence. Then they returned to the dorm. Evan met them in the hall, showed them a map of the campus where he had lectures. Here's math, here's biology, here's the lab. I have time in between, he said. And we also have a good fitness center. I signed up for basketball. Clever girl, said David. I made you a just-in-case package, Laura said, handing him a zip folder. First aid kit, thread, batteries, and a small flashlight. Keep it in the drawer. Mom, thank you. Evan was embarrassed again. I'll write tonight. They went up to the room again. Tyler returned with his mom and dad, and they said hello briefly. Tyler's parents talked quickly, discussing parking and the refrigerator. David nodded and stepped back. He knew there were a lot of new voices in this room now, and their place was in the hallway. Well then, he said at the door, let's hug and go. Evan stepped forward. He hugged his father tightly, without further ado. Then he hugged his mother. Laura paused for a second, stroking his back. Right, if anything. Any nonsense, right, she said. I will. Evan smiled. I love you. We love you too, David said. On the street, they walked in silence to the car. Laura opened the door, but did not get in. She stood there. She took a deep breath. I'm not crying, she said, as if making excuses. I know, David replied. It's okay. They pulled out of campus and into traffic. The radio was silent. Laura's phone vibrated once. She didn't pick it up. I was thinking about Mia, she said after a few minutes. She needs more attention. The guidance counselor at school is right about sleep. I talked to Mia. We'll lower the evening screen, and I'll drive her to training on Wednesday and Friday. David looked in the mirror. She also wanted to sign up for driving lessons. I'll pay for the course. Laura took out a notebook and wrote it down, and I'll get an insurance certificate. They stopped at a gas station, filled up the tank, and bought water. David returned to the car and saw Laura looking at the screen. She was typing quickly. Received. Report okay. Confirming Wednesday. He got in and started the engine. Who are you with? He asked without accusation. Scott sent another note for the report. Laura put the phone down. Dave, I know what this looks like. It's easier for me to give a quick answer now than to drag it out until tomorrow. I understand, he said. Let's just stick to those 2 days at the end of the month. It'll be a test. It will be, she nodded. They drove on. They got back to Cleveland around 7. The house was quiet. Mia left a note. Coach is late. Be there at 9. Got some pasta. David heated up the leftovers and put out 2 glasses of wine. They sat in the kitchen. How are you? He asked. It's fine. Laura took a sip and smiled wearily. It's strange to let go, but it's right. Everything will work out for him. Yes, said David. He'll do fine. They talked about small things: Mia's routes, trash day, bills. Cleaning up after the trip took half an hour. Night fell unnoticed. Laura went out onto the porch and sat down for a minute. David sat down next to her. "Thank you for today," she said. "Without you, I'd be drowning in lists." "We are a team," he answered briefly. "Let's hold this," she said. They returned to the house. Laura set the alarm. The phone remained on the dresser. The bedroom was quiet. David lay down and felt tired. He thought about the 2 days at the end of the month. He needed more than just a trip. He needed simple conversations at home again, without regard for other people's schedules. Half an hour later, Evan texted, "Met the floor, all good. Too early to sleep. Love you." Laura smiled and showed it to David. He replied, "Proud of you. Sleep." They turned off the light. Laura's phone didn't vibrate until the morning. On Monday morning, David woke up before his alarm. He went down to the kitchen, put on the coffee maker, and opened his laptop. The screen flashed with bills from the beginning of the month: mortgage, electricity, car insurance. He clicked on the family plan page. The connection details were filled with lines of dates and times, numbers, duration, text messages. He scrolled through the last 2 weeks. A few short conversations between Laura and Paula. He recognized those numbers. A few work calls to the hospital's landline, and a repeating mobile with the local code 216, which appeared late 11:41 p.m. 12:13 am. 12:52 am, there was no conversation as such, just incoming, duration 0 o'clock, and immediately after, message. The operator passed such messages off as data messaging. The number was the same. It popped up on weekends, 2 on Saturday at 11:08 p.m. when they returned from college. David didn't take screenshots or write anything down. He just watched as the coffee slowly poured into his mug. Then he closed the tab and turned off the screen. He didn't want to turn the morning into an investigation, but he remembered the number. Mia came downstairs wearing a sweatshirt and a ponytail. "Good," she said, yawning. "Good day. Scrambled eggs. Can I have some oatmeal?" she asked, "and a piece of apple." While the water was boiling, David took out a printout of the volunteer club rules from the drawer that the consultant had left yesterday. He put it next to the plate. "Let's discuss it," he said. "You wanted to go to the hospital volunteer service. There are shifts until 9. If you take the evening, the phone after 10 is out of the question. You need sleep." "I agree," Mia nodded. "I'll talk to the coach so that Wednesday is without late stretching. And about driving, can you sign me up for a course?" "I'll write it down. I'll check the dates this evening, and I'll check the insurance with my mom." Laura came down in a business suit with a tablet in her hand. She kissed them both and poured coffee. "I'll stop by for lunch," she said to Mia. "I have a meeting near the school." "We have a short day today," Mia answered. "The guys and I are going to the library." "Okay, then right back." Laura finished her coffee and looked at David. "I'll pick up the printouts from the administrative one in the morning. I have training for managers in the evening. It starts at 6. It might end at 9. "Okay," David said. "I'll pick up Mia after practice." Laura smiled and went into the garage. A minute later, the car pulled out. David put the dishes away. He had a clear plan for the day in his head: work, a stop at the shops, Mia's practice in the evening, then a trip to the neighbor's bowling alley. Mark had sent a text the day before. "League at North Coast Lanes, 8 p.m. Let's rent a lane, relax." The day at work passed without surprises. Suppliers shipped a batch of fasteners. The warehouse area reconstruction project was moving forward on schedule. At lunchtime, David stopped by an electronics store and bought Mia a theory driving kit, a book, and cards. Nearby, he picked up some child-proof vitamin D tablets from the drugstore. He tried to compensate with little things for what had been missing at home in recent months: attentiveness and rhythm. In the evening, he picked up Mia from practice and drove her home. She sat down to do her homework. David took the lasagna out of the freezer, put it in the oven, and texted Laura, "Dinner's in the oven. I'll pick you up if you want." A few minutes later, she replied, "No need. I'm on the medical center campus. I'll be back late." At 7:40, David called Mark and headed out. North Coast Lanes was in a strip mall on Ridge Road. The parking lot was half full. It smelled of driveway wax and beer. The 20-something girl behind the counter made it clear. "2 tracks," Mark said, "for 2 hours." "We'll have 4, David added. "I'll pay in advance." 2 more people came up to them, Tony's neighbor, a car mechanic, and Mark's old work friend, Nate. They shook hands and exchanged the usual, "How are you?" "How's your son?" Tony asked as they selected the balls. "He checked in," David replied. "He looked confident." "Cool," Tony nodded. "I'm taking mine to Toledo next week. My wife's worried." The game started quietly, without excitement. Everyone was about 40, no one was chasing records. Conversations took place between approaches. "How's it going at home?" Mark asked, throwing a strike and turning around. "We're pretending the schedules are working," David said. "There's a lot of work. We agreed to take a couple of days off at the end of the month. Take a breather." "That's right," Mark said. "Brenda and I had a similar story. I was always working extra shifts. We finally took a week off and went to Pennsylvania. No goals. It helped." Nate ordered a beer and a plate of nachos for everyone. David got a soft drink. He was driving. "When the Browns play, do you watch them together?" Nate asked. "I do," Mark said. "Brenda comes with us sometimes." "David, are you going on Sunday, or are you going some other time?" "I'll check on Mia," David said. "She has a team going to volunteer training on Sunday. I'll drive her and maybe be there for the second half." The phone in his pocket vibrated briefly. David looked. A message from Laura. "Training ran late. I'll be back after 9. Don't wait for me with dinner." He wrote, "Okay, drive carefully." There was no answer. "Everything okay?" Mark asked, seeing him hide the phone. "Yes. Work with Laura," David said briefly. They kept going. Mark told him about a new roof from the same contractor who did David's deck. Tony shared that he worked part-time as a tow truck driver. Nate complained about his boss. Nothing special. But David felt like he enjoyed these simple conversations without tickers and digital graphs. He put the thought of the phone bill aside. He allowed himself to be in the present. By 9:10, they had finished the game. Mark poured himself the rest of the beer into a plastic cup and finished it. "Shall we close the account?" he asked. "For 2? "I'll pay the fare," David said. "You go." Agreed. On the way out, they paused for a minute at the display case with the pins. "Listen," Mark said a little more quietly, "if you just need to talk it out without advice, without do it this way, I'm here. I've had periods when my wife was like on another planet. It's not always about us. Sometimes it's about them. But that doesn't make it any easier." "Got it," David said. "Thank you." A wind blew in the parking lot. David got into the car, turned on the headlights, and automatically checked his phone. There was no message. He drove home, turning on the radio at the same time. There was a red light at the intersection. A Camry of a similar color stopped next to him. He turned away, changed the station. He didn't like it when his head started to think up unnecessary things. At home, Mia was sitting on the sofa with a laptop. "How was training?" he asked, taking off his jacket. "Fine. We were practicing serving. I left you some lasagna." "Thanks." David sat down next to me. "How about driving?" "I found a course for Tuesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock. Is that convenient?" "In principle, yes. Only on Thursdays I have a volunteer club." Mia opened the calendar. "Let's say Tuesday and Saturday morning." "Okay, I'll book it." They discussed the weekly schedule. At 10, Mia went into the room. David loaded the dishwasher, turned off the living room light, and looked at his watch. It was 10:15 p.m. He texted Laura, "Where are you?" A minute later, she replied, "On my way. Lots of questions from the bosses. I'll be home in 20. He put the kettle on, sat down at the table, and covered his mug with a towel. Laura came in at 10:38 p.m., tired, holding a folder. "Sorry," she said, taking off her shoes. "We were discussing discipline for a long time, then the admin kept me in his office." "Got it. Tea?" "Yes," she nodded. "I'm going to take a shower for a minute." 10 minutes later, they were sitting in the kitchen. David poured her tea. "Mark called," he said. "He invited us to go bowling. We went. I had a great time." "Okay," Laura said. "Mark knows how to organize." "How was the training?" "It's not easy. The leaders are tired. They asked for a list of measures for the fall. I'll draw it up tomorrow." David nodded. He wanted to ask about number 216, but he stopped. They had agreed yesterday for the end of the month. He decided to wait. He didn't want to start the conversation at night, in the kitchen, after a long day. He saw in her eyes the steady tension of someone who is handling several processes at once. He put off the questions. They went to bed around 11:40. Laura's phone was lying face down. At 0:07 it vibrated once. Laura didn't pick it up. At 0:12 there was another short signal. She turned around, picked it up, looked at it, and typed something. "Put it back." David closed his eyes. He counted his breaths. He didn't want to go into the same room of thoughts where everything starts with one number and ends with fantasies. He fell asleep. The alarm clock woke him in the morning. His usual figure was reflected in the bathroom mirror. He thought about how, at 46, he had started to take more care of his face and back. Not for looks, but to stay in shape. He pulled on a t-shirt, went down to the kitchen, and laid out his school uniforms, his driving schedule, and his vacation slip on the table. He set a reminder on his phone. Reservations, 2830 Lake. He opened the website of a small lodge on the shore of Erie, looked at photos of the rooms, and read the cancellation policy. He went through the options and chose one with a view of the water and a simple breakfast. He entered his card, received a confirmation, and sent an email to Laura. Booked. Double room, check-in 28th after lunch. The answer came a minute later. "Thank you. Let's not cancel." The day at work was busy. After lunch, Brenda, Mark's wife, called. "I'm baking a pie on Saturday. Come over with Mia after practice," she said. "Mark said you're on the road a lot these days. Come grab a bite with us." "Thank you," David replied. "We'll come in." At 3 o'clock, he received a text from Evan. "Class is okay. The biology lab was interesting. Bought a shower mat." He smiled and wished him luck on his first test. That evening at home, Mia showed him that the consultant had approved her for a volunteer shift on Saturdays from 10 to 1. Laura sent a short message, "I'll be there later than 8. Have dinner without me." David heated up the chicken and rice. They ate together and discussed who would go to Brenda. That night, David reopened his account with the operator to check Evan's roaming charges. On the same page, new data messaging flashed from the same number 216 21 54 22 11. He closed the tab again. He wrote only one thing in his notebook: "Don't talk late at night. Talk during the day." He didn't want to set a trap. He wanted to talk. He lay down. There were 12 days left until the end of the month. He set a reminder for Friday. Check if the training has been rescheduled. He needed this trip. He needed a place where he could finally ask honestly, "What's going on here?" The morning was quiet. Mia had left for training early, leaving a note on the table about a volunteer meeting. Laura said she would stop by the hospital for an hour to sign papers after the previous night's charity event. David cleared the glasses from the table, put the plates in the dishwasher, and took the clothes out of the washing machine and hung them up to dry in the laundry room. Yesterday evening was sitting in his head as a separate frame. The hotel hall, tables with signs, the host with a microphone. Laura smiled, shook hands, and introduced him to colleagues. At the reception desk, he saw Scott. He was in a dark jacket, without a contractor's badge. Laura introduced them. "Scott Walker, our partner." The handshake was dry, nothing extra. But in the pauses between toasts, David noticed how they stepped aside several times for short conversations. On the way home, He asked if they had too many work topics. She answered that it was part of the project. Then they drove in silence. They did not quarrel at home, but the conversation itself stopped. David folded the dry shirts and hung them in the closet. Laura's jacket from the evening lay on the chair. He took the cover off it to take to the dry cleaners. The inside pocket was thicker than usual. He pulled out a folded receipt. Courtyard downtown. Bar receipt. 11:42 p.m. 2 drinks. The date was 3 days ago, not yesterday. The signature was illegible, but the L was clear. He put the receipt on the dresser, then put it in an envelope marked dry cleaner. He didn't take a photo. He knew the find would ring in his head, even if he put the receipt back. Laura's laptop sat open in the kitchen. The screen was awake. On the display was a message box. At the top was the contact, Scott W. Several lines were visible without scrolling. Thanks for yesterday. Updates are going faster now. Okay, glad to help. Were you okay getting home so late? I got here. The night went smoothly. I'm not sure we should meet outside the office. It doesn't feel right. Got it. Your choice. I respect it. If necessary, just work. Work is a must. The rest, I don't know. There was an empty input field. The time of the last messages was 0:17. David took a step back. He did not scroll through the history. He closed the lid of the laptop and stood, leaning his palms on the table. Nothing hurt or trembled. There was a feeling that the missing pieces had come together to form a clear picture, but it still needed captions. He texted Mia, "What time will you be home?" The answer came quickly, "At 2." He wrote, "Okay, I'll go to the dry cleaners and the store. Need anything?" "Just some snack bars." At the dry cleaners, he left his jacket and a couple of shirts, and put the envelope with the check in the side pocket of his bag, although he had originally intended to give it away with the clothes. In the parking lot, he got into his car and just sat there for a minute before starting it. He didn't want to talk like an investigator. He wanted to talk like a husband who still believed that words mattered. He returned at 2. Mia was closing her textbook and packing her backpack. "Did the volunteer meeting go well?" he asked. "Yes. We were divided into pairs by wards. I ended up in pediatrics. I need to go through orientation at the hospital." She took off her sneakers. "Mom isn't here yet." "Not yet," David said. "Want a snack? I bought some yogurt." "Thank you." He put the kettle on, cut up an apple, and laid out the bars on the table. Mia told him about the club's curator, about the consent form for night calls from the hospital. David listened and wrote down her shifts in the general calendar. They agreed on Tuesday and Saturday. At 3:40, the door to the garage opened. Laura came in, put her bag down, took off her shoes, and smiled at Mia. "How was the meeting?" she asked. "Okay, I'm in pediatrics." Mia hugged her mother briefly. "I have a bunch of forms. Will you sign them for me tonight?" "Certainly." Mia went to her room. 2 people remained in the kitchen. "Would you like some tea?" David asked. "Yes." Laura sniffed the aroma and nodded. "Thank you." He poured tea, put the mug on the table, and sat down opposite. "I found a receipt in your jacket," he said immediately. 3 days ago. Courtyard bar. 2 drinks late at night." Laura didn't flinch. She looked at the cup, then at him. "It was after a meeting," she answered evenly. "I was meeting with a partner. We were discussing deadlines. I had water and a glass of wine. He had a beer. We were sitting in the lobby. Nothing special." "Was it Scott?" David asked. "Yes," she said without pause. "It was Scott. And I also saw your laptop open. There were messages there. At night. Formally, they were about work. But there was a line saying, 'Meeting outside the office doesn't look right.'" She looked down. The pause was long. "I didn't get involved in the story," he continued. "I didn't take photos. I didn't put together a file of evidence. What I see is enough for me. I need to understand what's going on." Laura put the spoon down on the saucer. The noise of the dishwasher broke the silence. "What's happening is what you already feel," she said quietly. I appreciate his attention. He helps with the project, he's always in touch. He asks if I've arrived, he keeps his promises without reminders. I know that sounds like an excuse. It's not an excuse, it's a description. Were you intimate? David asked. I'm not asking for details. Just yes or no. She closed her eyes for a second. We kissed, she said, once in the car, that night when part of our update fell through, and we sat there until midnight. I'm not making excuses. I'm being direct. Then I stopped. I know that's already a violation. David nodded. He didn't ask the next question. He noticed his fingers tightening. He unclenched them. Thank you for your direct answer, he said. I don't want to turn this house into an interrogation room. I want to understand if we have a chance. I suggest family therapy, not to find someone to blame, to understand what we have left and what we can build anew, if that's possible. Laura looked up. I'll go, she said immediately. I agree. I don't want to hide and pretend it's just stress at work. That wouldn't be true. I'm ready to talk to a therapist. But I don't want to decide the fate of the marriage today. I'm not in a position to make final decisions at this moment. I'm not asking for decisions today, David said. I'm asking for a step. Okay, step is therapy, she repeated. We have a list through insurance. There's an EAP program in HR. I'll get the contacts. Find out, David said. Or I will. I don't care who calls first. The important thing is to get started. They drank tea in silence for a while. The noise of the dishwasher stopped. Mia rustled in the hallway. I'm going to Brenda's for an hour, she said, looking out. They invited me for pie. Dad, are you coming? I'll go. We're leaving in 20 minutes, he replied. Mom will rest. Mia nodded and ran off to get her jacket. David returned to the conversation. Let's agree on some clear rules before the first session, he said. 1. No face-to-face meetings with Scott outside the office. 2. Only correspond through work channels and only during work hours. 3. If the hospital requires a contractor to be present at an evening event, you let me know in advance and we'll decide what that looks like. I agree, Laura said without resistance. I'll let Paula know that I have a limit on personal meetings, and I'll ask that any informal discussions be moved to workdays. Thank you. And I will ask the department to have 2 people from our side attend all meetings with contractors, she added. This is correct according to the process. Good idea. She sighed. Dave, I don't want you to think that I have a new life instead of you. I don't have a instead. I have a balance failure. I stopped closing my laptop in the evenings a long time ago, and I stopped looking at us as people, not a schedule. This is my responsibility. I hear, he said, but I need to see changes, not just hear words. I can wait if I see movement. I understand. She and Mia went to Mark and Brenda's for an hour. They talked about school, about repairs, about apples in the orchard. Brenda gave Mia the volunteer form she had filled out for her niece as a sample. On the way home, Mia said, You looked serious today. I'm not butting in. Just tell me if I should stay at Katie's one night, so as not to disturb. You don't have to leave home, David said. We're adults, we can handle it. If there are any changes in the schedule, we'll let you know in advance. Okay. Returning, David went into the office, opened his laptop, and logged into his insurance account. He found the employee support program. In the list of specialists, he saw Dr. Elizabeth Rivera, family psychologist. The city was their area, and the available slots were Tuesday evening and Friday morning. He chose Tuesday at 7 p.m. for an initial consultation via Zoom and left a short description of the request. Crisis of trust in marriage, willingness of both to participate. A confirmation email arrived. He printed out the invitation and put it on the kitchen table. Laura came out of the bedroom in a house t-shirt without makeup. She had a calm look. I started looking too, she said. Did you succeed? Yes. Tuesday, 7 o'clock, Dr. Rivera. Online. If you need to reschedule, let me know. No, let's leave it. I'll be home by 6:30. Agreed. The three of them had dinner. The conversation was about school, the upcoming Browns game, and recipes. They didn't bring up any tough topics in front of Mia. At 9, Laura signed the volunteer forms. At 10, Mia went to bed. In the bedroom, Laura stopped at the chest of drawers. Give me my jacket, please. I'd like to take it to the dry cleaner myself. I already dropped it off, David said. The bar receipt was in my pocket. I didn't throw it away. I have it. If you want it, take it. I'm not going to keep it as evidence. Give it back, she said calmly. He handed her the envelope. She didn't look at it. She put it on the shelf. Thank you for not making a scene, she added. I understand that you would have had the right to do so. I'm trying to take the path that gives me a chance, he said. That's important to me. Me too. They lay down. Laura's phone was still charging in the living room. She said it out loud, not as a gesture, but as a fact. David nodded. He didn't think phones were the main problem, but he could see that this step was important to her. Before going to bed, he texted Evan. How's your week? He replied. Lab's okay. Gym tomorrow. Love it. David closed the messenger and turned off the light. He didn't expect it to get easier tomorrow, but they had a concrete step. It wasn't a decision, it was the beginning of a process. That was all he needed right now. On Tuesday, the house was quiet at 6:30. Mia had gone to practice and promised to be back by 8. David set his laptop on the table and checked the camera and sound. On the table were the printed invitation to the session and the short list of questions he had jotted down that morning. Laura locked the door to the office, turned off notifications on her phone, and put it next to the router in the living room. Let's sit in the kitchen. The light is more even there, David said. Okay, Laura nodded. I made tea. Do you want some water? Water is okay. They sat down next to each other, but not too close. David opened the email with the link. At exactly 7 p.m., the screen split into squares. At the top was a woman in her 50s, her dark hair pulled back into a bun, with diplomas on the wall behind her. The signature, Dr. Elizabeth Rivera. Good evening, she said in a calm voice. I'm Elizabeth Rivera. Thank you for coming on time. What should I call you? David, he said. Laura, she said. I will write it down. Dr. Rivera smiled briefly. A few organizational points. Our consultation lasts 55 minutes. I do not record the video. Everything we discuss is confidential, except in cases of security threat. The purpose of the first meeting is to understand the request and agree on the steps. Do you agree with this format? Yes, they answered. Who wants to start? She asked. David nodded. I did, he said. We've been married 21 years. We have 2 children, a son in college and a daughter in high school. I recently discovered a hotel receipt and correspondence between my wife and a contractor at her hospital. She admitted there was a kiss and emotional involvement. We don't want to fight. We want to figure out what we have left and whether we can restore it. Dr. Rivera turned to Laura. Laura, how do you see it? It seems so, Laura said. I was overworked. I allowed myself to meet with the contractor in person. I know that was a violation. I want to understand why I went there and how to rebuild trust. And I want us to have a plan, not just talk. Got it, Rivera nodded. I have 2 types of questions for this stage, factual and feelings. Facts first. When did your communication outside of work channels begin? At the end of the summer, said Laura. First work messages, then the occasional personal remark. Once a bar downtown after a meeting. Once a kiss. Then I stopped. It didn't come to an intimate relationship, Rivera asked. No, Laura replied. It didn't get through. David, do you believe this? He looked at the camera. At this stage, yes. I understand that I may be suspicious, but I have no direct information about more. I asked to stop personal meetings. We agreed on the rules. Okay, Rivera said. Now about feelings. David, how are you feeling right now? Anger in flashes, mostly empty and tired. There is a fear that I missed something earlier, and irritation from phone notifications at night. At the same time, I want to save the family. I need to see action. Laura, shame, guilt, and at the same time, relieved that I'm not hiding it anymore. I see how I've pushed family to the bottom of the list. I want to get things back in order. But my head is still full of work, schedules, and reports. I need help setting boundaries. Dr. Rivera made a note. You both talk about boundaries, time, and trust. These are key topics. I also hear a difference in pace. David needs affirmation through actions. Laura needs structure to sustain decisions. I'll offer some basic steps for the next 2 weeks. But before that, a brief history of the relationship. What usually worked for you? Where were the failures before this situation? David gave a quick rundown of the last few years. Laura's shifts, his new job, his son going off to college, his daughter's workload, the disappearance of dinners for 3. Laura added about the lack of staff at the hospital, how she was praised for being always available, and how that had become a rule. That's an important point, Rivera said. When the external system rewards 24/7 availability, the family gets you as an afterthought. That's not an excuse for cheating, but it's a backdrop. Now about the rules. First, zero contact outside of work with this person. At work, only in the presence of a third party on your side. All communications through official channels. Do you agree? I agree, said Laura. I've already asked the second employee to join the meetings with the contractor. I'll transfer the correspondence to a general ticket. Second, transparency during the transition period. This is not about surveillance. This is about voluntary openness. In the evening, phones are charged in the living room. Night notifications are turned off unless there is a duty. Passwords are not changed. Maybe a 5-line, "How was your day?" journal. This gives David a sense of reality and Laura a structure. Do you agree? Yes, David said. Yes, said Laura. I'm already leaving the phone in the living room. Third, a couple of times. Daily check-in for 15 minutes without screens. One evening a week together outside the house or at home, but without household chores and phones. Do you have a trip to the lake booked yet? Yes, 28:30, David said. Don't cancel it, Rivera confirmed. Fourth, individual responsibility. Laura, you need to write your work partner a short business letter setting out the boundaries. We don't communicate outside of work processes. All discussions are through open channels. Thank you for your understanding. And tell your manager that you are meeting with a contractor together. This is not about guilt. This is about the process. David, you need to have your own support in parallel. Sports, friends, a project. We don't build our entire lives around expectations from our wives. This reduces tension. I go bowling on Wednesdays, he said. I can bring back my morning runs. That's good enough, Rivera nodded. Now comes the hard part, trust. At this stage, I don't recommend pulling out all the details. It's often traumatic and unhelpful. But basic transparency is required. A timeline of events, a list of contacts by key days, and an answer to the question, what did this communication mean to you? Laura, are you ready to prepare a one-page truth letter without intimate details, but acknowledging your role and what needs you are trying to meet? Laura took a deep breath. I'm ready, she said. I'll need a week. Do it before our next meeting. David, you will write a letter of expectations, what you need to feel safe. This is not a list of punishments. This is a list of actions that will give you an understanding that the work is going on. I will, he said. A question about your daughter, the doctor added. Are you planning on telling Mia that you're going to family therapy? They exchanged glances. I think so, David said. Short and sweet, no details. I think so too, said Laura, to say that we are working on communication. That's right, Rivera said. Teenagers feel the pressure. An honest, short formulation reduces anxiety. 2 more points. Finances and household chores. During the crisis, couples often clash over trifles. Make a monthly budget in 3 blocks. Mandatory payments, home and children, personal expenses. Write down the limits so there is no sense of secrecy, and distribute household chores for 2 weeks in writing so you don't argue every night. Are you ready? Yes, they both answered. The question is about physical intimacy, Rivera said calmly. For the transitional period, I recommend a pause at Laura's initiative. Not as a punishment, but as a way to reduce emotional pressure. We'll return to the topic in 2 or 3 weeks. Do you agree to talk about this between yourselves so there are no misunderstandings? I agree, said David. I agree, said Laura. We need time. Okay, that's all for today. I'll send you a short plan and a list of homework assignments by mail. The next meeting is in a week at the same time. If there's a crisis between sessions, write briefly. We'll find a window. Any questions? 1, David said. What if I find out Laura broke the contact rule? You record the fact, don't arrange a review at night. You write to me, we move the session closer and discuss based on the agreements. And at the same time you make a decision, which you will indicate in your letter of expectations. These are the boundaries. Understood. I have a question, Laura said. Should I change jobs to avoid running into the contractor? If it is real, it reduces the risk. If not, we turn on the rule, always not alone, and move the interaction to a higher level. Discuss with the manager without dramatization. Fine. Thank you for your openness, Rivera said. I'll see you in a week. The screen went blank. The kitchen became quiet. The tea grew cold. David closed the laptop. How are you? He asked calmly. It's noisy inside, but I'm glad we've started, Laura said. I'll write a letter to the contractor today, and I'll tell Paula tomorrow that all meetings are between the two of us, and the letter of truth is due Sunday. I'll write up the expectations tomorrow morning, he said, and I'll draw up a budget. About Mia. Shall we tell you today? She asked. Let's do it after dinner. Briefly, no details. Mia came in at 7:30, smiled, and put her backpack by the stairs. I'm in the shower and coming down, she said. At dinner, David began. We have a quick update. My mom and I have started family therapy. It's on Tuesday evenings. We want to improve our communication and schedule. You don't have to do anything. If you feel like you want to talk to a specialist, let me know. Mia looked calmly. Thank you for telling me, she replied. I'm not surprised. You've had a lot of work and little time. If you need anything, just let me know when I'm going to see Katie for the evening. I'm flexible. Not yet, said Laura. Thank you. After dinner, David took out the trash and walked around the block. The air was cool. He went back into the house, sat down at the table, and opened a notebook. He wrote a heading, I need, and then, in bullet points, 0 contact outside of work, 15-minute check-in, phones in the living room at night, 1 night together a week, honest letter and timeline, if rules are broken, separate for a month. He reread and removed the softer wording. He needed it to be precise. Laura opened her laptop in the bedroom and typed a text to the contractor. Scott, I'm recording in the letter. All questions about the project are through tickets and meetings with the participation of another employee from our side. We do not communicate outside of work channels. Thank you for understanding. She read it, sent it, and put the laptop down. Then she opened a new file and began a draft of the letter of truth. No artifice, points and dates. It was hard, but concrete. Before going to bed, they met again in the kitchen. He answered, Laura said, showing the screen. Got it, thank you. I'll keep in touch via Paula and tickets. Okay, David said. Thank you for not pushing, she added. I can see that you're holding back your emotions. That doesn't mean you're not hurting. I understand that. It hurts, he said bluntly, and it's important to me that we've started moving. They turned off the lights. The phones were in the living room. The house was quiet. Mia was texting a friend in her room, and then turned off the sound too. She could see that her parents were trying. In the morning, Laura left earlier than usual. On her way to work, she stopped by Paula. She told her about the rule, always together. Paula listened and said, I will support you, and I am glad that you do this not on emotions, but according to the process. At lunch, Laura went to Helen and arranged a room for Saturday's training. She was very clear. At the end of the day, she texted David, "I can be home by 7 tonight." He replied, "Check in at 7:30. I'll make chicken and salad." The evening passed quietly. They sat down at the table without phones and each answered 3 questions from the doctor's letter. What happened today, what didn't, where help was needed, without protection or comments. It took 15 minutes. Then they switched to household items and television. They did not discuss the past. They held the frame. They had a note on the fridge, "Meetings, Tuesday 7 p.m." Underneath, it was Mia's calendar and a reminder about the trip to the lake. There was no immediate relief, but there was a routine. Sunday was cool and clear. David suggested a walk to the Rocky River Reservation. Mia went to practice and promised to be back by 2. Laura took a thin jacket and a folder with a sheet of paper she spent her evenings over. She called it a letter of truth. The house remained quiet. They drove without a radio. The trailhead parking lot was half empty. They walked a short distance down the path and sat on a bench near the water. An elderly couple was feeding ducks nearby. David pulled 2 bottles of water out of his pocket and set one next to Laura. "I'm ready," he said. "Read." She opened the folder. The paper was single page, without long turns. She spoke measuredly, without speeding up. "I, Laura Bennett, admit that I had personal communication with contractor Scott Walker. Timeline, late August, occasional non-work-related comments in ticket correspondence. September 12th, meeting at a hotel bar. After a meeting, 2 drinks, non-intimate conversation. September 22nd, kissing in his car near the hospital parking lot after a project delay, then stopped and did not repeat. There were no intimate details. I stopped personal contacts and transferred all work-related questions to the general channel. The reasons that I see in myself: chronic overload, need for recognition, and a feeling that I am important not only as a performer. At home, a feeling that I solve everything with lists, and it was easier for me to correspond than to talk. This is a description, not an excuse. My contribution to recovery: transparent rules, joint therapy, refusal to work in the evenings, fixing offline time for family, willingness to accept consequences, including separate accommodation for the period of trust restoration. Laura. She lowered the sheet and looked at David. He nodded, paused, and opened his notebook. "For safety, I need 0 personal contact with Scott, project meetings only with Paula, phones at night outside the bedroom, daily check-in with no screens, 1 evening together a week. If there is a violation, separate living for a month. No intimacy during the recovery period. We will return to the topic in 2 weeks. Willingness to mediate on household issues and budget." He closed the notebook. "All this has already been discussed, but I wanted to read it out loud." "Accepted," said Laura. "I agree with all points." They sat in silence for a couple of minutes. Bicycles passed by, and someone walked a dog. "We need to figure out one more thing," David continued. "Dr. Rivera said that sometimes separating can help in the beginning. I thought maybe a month. I'll rent an apartment closer so I don't disrupt Mia's schedule. What do you think?" Laura didn't look away. "I understand why this is necessary," she said. "It will reduce tension and provide structure. I don't want Mia to live with constant talk about rules. If it makes you feel safer, I'll support it. A month is reasonable, and we don't interrupt therapy, we don't miss plans, and I don't turn into a person who is free in the evenings. On the contrary, more time at home with Mia, more sleep, more structure." "Yes," David said. "I'm not leaving my family. I'm taking a break in one house. We're still parents, and I'm moving within a 10-minute radius of the house." "Where will you look?" she asked. I looked at the ads. There are furnished studios in Lakewood. There is an extended stay option on Lorraine Avenue. Month by month, I would prefer a studio. It's quieter and cheaper." "Okay," Laura said. "I'll help pay for it if necessary. We'll work out a budget, like Dr. Rivera said. We'll register it this evening. He nodded. And one more thing, how will we tell Mia? Straightforwardly, without details, Laura took out her phone, opened the note. We are working with a therapist. We have been assigned a month of separation to restore order and reduce tension. This is not a divorce. We are still parents and keep the schedule. You are not changing schools or your usual schedule. Is that enough? Yes, said David. And we'll add right away how we'll travel. I'll take Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning. You take Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sunday, depending on the situation. Suitable, Laura nodded. Plus volunteer shifts. I'll help with the forms. They walked a little more. At the exit to the parking lot, Laura stopped. Dave, she said quietly but evenly, I know that one sorry doesn't make up for the pain you're feeling. I'm not asking you to speed up. I'll do what I said I would do. If you see me slipping, tell me, and we'll go straight back to Dr. Rivera's schedule. Okay, he said. I won't play I can handle it myself either. If I get overwhelmed, I'll tell you. They drove home. In the car, Laura turned on the navigator to the address of one of the complexes in Lakewood. The road took 10 minutes. The rental manager showed them a studio on the second floor. A bed, a table, a mini kitchen, a closet, washing machines downstairs are shared. The furniture is simple, clean. Wi-Fi is included, monthly payment, the deposit is half the monthly rate. We need entry from Monday, David said. Can we? We can, the manager replied. We'll sign electronically today and you'll get the keys tomorrow. They went outside. There was a supermarket and a bus stop nearby. On the way back, they talked through the logistics list. A set of bed linen, dishes for one, a couple of shirts, a shaving kit, a laptop, documents. I'll pick up a box from the garage for you, Laura said. No rush. I'll take it myself, he replied. I want to go through this myself. But thank you. They made it home before Mia arrived. She, as promised, returned at 2. She put the ball on the shelf and took off her sneakers. Sit down, David asked. We need to talk briefly. She sat down at the table and put the phone next to her. We started couples therapy, he began. The therapist suggested a month of separation to ease the tension and restore order. I'll rent a studio apartment nearby. This isn't a divorce. It's a workable measure. Your schedules don't change. We both remain available. Mia nodded, not surprised. I understand, she said. And who will take me to driving lessons on Tuesdays? Me, David replied. Tuesday and Saturday me. Wednesday and Friday Mom. The rest of the time as planned. If you need something, you write to both of them. Okay, Mia said. I won't ask why. If you need help, just ask. I can stay at Katie's a couple of nights a week if it's not convenient at home. But if it's okay, I'd rather stay home. Stay home, Laura said. No moving for you. We'll manage on our own. After the conversation, Mia went to her room to do her homework. David opened his laptop and signed the electronic lease. A confirmation came. He could pick up the keys tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Laura sat down at the budget. A table appeared on the screen. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, gas, pocket money, studio rent. They distributed the amounts and limits. There was no need to argue. By evening, David had packed 2 boxes. Clothes, necessary things, documents. Mia helped with the bed linen, just silently handed over the pillowcases. Laura silently wiped the kitchen table and put a set of dishes in the bag. The air in the house was thick, but without shouting. They tried not to disturb each other's peace. They had their daily check-in scheduled for 8. They sat in the kitchen, phones put away. David began. What worked? I signed the contract, we made a budget, and we had an honest conversation with Mia. What didn't work? I have a hard time keeping my mind from thinking too much when you leave to text. Where I need help, I want you to not open your work email at home today. I agree, Laura replied. What happened? I wrote letters to the management about meetings, always together, agreed on an audience for Saturday, and prepared Mia's volunteer forms. What didn't happen? I reached for the phone twice in the evening out of habit. I put it back. Where help is needed, tomorrow, when you go get the keys, I'll pick Mia up from school and make dinner. We have a deal, he said. Before going to bed, Laura moved her phone charger to the living room. David moved his wallet to another bag so he wouldn't forget it tomorrow. They lay in the same bed for the last time before the break. There was no physical intimacy as agreed. They lay next to each other and were silent. It was difficult, but bearable. In the morning, Laura left early. David took Mia to school. In the afternoon, he received a text from the manager. The keys are ready. Come in at 5 p.m. He texted Laura, I'll pick her up at 5. She replied, I'll pick Mia up at 4:30. I'll cook dinner. David stopped by the store, bought towels and a folding drying rack. At the studio, he dropped off the boxes, checked the shower, turned on the Wi-Fi, and put in a new pillowcase. He was home by 7. Dinner was simple. Chicken, rice, salad. Mia joked about the coach, who had kept them 10 minutes late again. They watched 20 minutes of news, and David packed his bag. Mia hugged him at the door. Laura hugged him too, briefly. I'll write when I get there, he said. Right, she replied. In the car, he turned on the low beam and drove off. The studio was really quiet. He put the boxes against the wall, laid out the shirts, filled the kettle, and opened the window a crack. He wrote, I got here. Everything is okay. The phone blinked briefly. Laura replied, Okay, Mia and I are going to bed at 10. Check in tomorrow at 7:30. David sat on the edge of the bed. His head was clear and tired. He couldn't see the whole future, but he could see tomorrow. That was enough for him. The first morning in the studio began without fuss. David turned on the kettle, opened the window a crack, and stood there, listening to the silence. There were 3 shirts hanging in the closet, a laptop on the table. He did his exercises, pulled on his sneakers, and went for a short jog around the block. When he returned, he texted Evan. How was Monday? The answer came quickly. Chemistry lab is okay, gym in the evening. Everything is okay. He smiled, took a shower, and left for work. The day was quiet at the office. The project deliveries arrived on time. The installation team left a photo report. At lunchtime, Mark said, Diner on the corner. David agreed. They each grabbed a sandwich and coffee at a table by the window. Mark leaned against the back. How's the studio? He asked. Clean and quiet, David replied. At night, no notices. That helped. And at home, we stick to the plan. We call each other for 15 minutes in the evening, without screens. On Saturday, they have training at the hospital. I take Mia for a drive. At the end of the month, a trip to the lake. Mark nodded. I don't give advice. Just one thing, don't dig up phone logs at night. There are agreements, stick to them. If he breaks them, you know what to do. I've already written that rule down, David said. Thank you. At the hospital, Laura's morning began with a meeting with Paula. They sat in the conference room and took out their notebooks. I wrote to Helen and the receptionist that meetings with the contractor are now always in pairs, Laura said. Today at 11 we have an update on the driver. Let's go together. Of course, Paula nodded. And one more thing. We are moving some tickets to the general channel to kill personal messages. Let everything lie in the system. At 11 they entered a small conference room. Scott was already there with a laptop. He stood up and nodded to both of them. Good morning, he said calmly. We have 3 items. The trauma log, the pediatric rollback has been consolidated, and the release plan for the next window. I brought a short note without technical details for your report. Laura sat next to Paula, but not opposite Scott, a little to the side. The conversation was businesslike. Deadlines, responsible people, control. No deviations. Halfway through the meeting, Helen looked into the room, asked about the evening shift, received an answer, and left. At the end, Scott looked at Paula. All subsequent questions through you and tickets. I confirm. That's what we do, said Paula. Scott packed up his laptop and walked out without further ado. The door closed. Paula turned to Laura. It went well. You kept calm. It wasn't very calm inside, Laura said honestly, but the format helped. Thank you for being there. Always, Paula replied. Let's move on down the list. After lunch, Laura had a short meeting with the volunteer coordinator about Mia's orientation. The coordinator brought a packet of papers. Today at 5, an introduction for parents and children, he said. 30 minutes of presentation, then a tour of the departments. Pediatrics, household items, badges next week. We will, Laura replied. Thank you. She texted David, Mia's orientation is at 5 p.m. in the lobby. I'll meet her at the door. He responded, okay, I'll take Tuesday off to drive. See you tonight at 7:30 p.m. for check-in. By 4 o'clock, Laura was standing at the main entrance with a folder. Mia came up with a backpack and smiled. Ready, she said. Where are we meeting? Over there at the volunteer services counter. The small auditorium was filled with teenagers and parents. The coordinator started a presentation, visiting rules, confidentiality, schedules, where to store personal belongings, who to report problems to. Laura listened silently, like a normal parent. After the presentation, the group was led down the hallway. At the door to the trauma room, Laura couldn't help but pause her gaze. A familiar figure flashed behind the glass. Scott was standing at the counter, discussing something with a nurse. He saw them, looked away, and returned to the conversation. Laura continued on with the group. Is this the it guy you know? Mia asked quietly as they turned the corner. Yes, Laura answered calmly. He works with us on a system. We crossed paths on the project. Now all questions go through the department and official meetings. I understand, Mia said, and didn't ask any more questions. At the exit, the coordinator handed out volunteer orientation badges and lists. Mia signed and took the memo. Will you take me home? She asked. Of course. Dinner at home is at 7. Dad and I have a call at 7:30, said Laura. I'll stay in my room, Mia nodded. In the car, Mia started the conversation herself. Mom, I'm glad you told me the truth about therapy. It's easier for me when everything is on schedule. If necessary, I can sit with Katie when you have sessions. Thank you, Laura said. We'll tell you if we need to, but we're trying to make sure you don't have to change your plans. By this time, David had managed to stop by the studio, drop off his work bag, and buy groceries for a couple of evenings: eggs, salad, bread. On the way, he called Brenda to ask about Saturday's pie. Come over after Mia's practice, Brenda said. Mark will be grilling. No need to bring anything. Thank you, we'll come, David replied. At 7:30 p.m., he opened his laptop and video chatted Laura. She was sitting in the kitchen at home with a cup of tea nearby. The phone was lying next to the router, as they had agreed. Let's start like yesterday, he suggested. 3 points. Okay, Laura agreed. What worked? A normal work day, lunch with Mark, no night checks. What didn't work? By evening, a couple of waves of anger washed over me when I saw your It Update meeting on the calendar, but I held back and didn't fantasize. Where help is needed, talk it out if you have an intersection with him tomorrow. I'll talk, nodded Laura. What happened? The meeting with the contractor took place in Paula's presence, only on business. Mia's orientation went calmly. I didn't open my work email at home. What didn't work? I caught myself twice thinking about responding right away to emails, but I turned off notifications. Where I need help. Tomorrow I have a short log review at 10:30. Paula is coming with me. After that, a call with the administrator. I want to do it without my laptop in the evening. Support me if I lose my temper. I'll second that, David said. And one more thing, I found a good route to run this morning. I want to make it 3 times a week. Excellent, she said. I'll write that down on our common sheet as your support. They moved on to everyday matters. They divided Mia's trips for the week, the shopping list, and the payment of bills. They agreed that on Friday evening David would pick Mia up from her volunteer shift and go grocery shopping, while Laura would take the documents to the insurance company. "There's one more thing," David said at the end. "I'd like to stop by the house Sunday afternoon and drop a couple of tools from the garage into the studio. It'll take 20 minutes. "Come on in," she replied. "Mia and I will be at a volunteer meeting at that time. You can open the door with the code." After the call, David sat on the edge of the bed. His emotions were uneven, but manageable. He opened his notebook and checked the boxes next to Run, No Logs, Check In. He closed it and turned off the light. Laura's Tuesday morning began with an early email from the administrator, access discussion at 15 o'clock. She forwarded it to Paula. "Will you be there?" "Yes, of course." At 10:30, they did a short review of the logs with Scott. Again, a purely businesslike tone, again only according to the list. In the hallway after the conversation, Paula said, "This is how project communication should look like. Without emotions, without unnecessary phrases. Let's keep it like this." "We're holding it," Laura replied. At lunchtime, Laura saw a message from the volunteer coordinator. "Mia confirmed for Saturday 10 o'clock to 13 o'clock. I need a doctor's signature on health." She immediately called the family doctor's office. "The mother will bring it. We'll sign it on Friday morning," the nurse said. "The line is short." Laura wrote in the shared calendar, "Friday 9 o'clock, Mia's uniform." That day, David went out of town to a site to check the racks at a supplier. The trip took an hour. On the way back, he called Elizabeth Rivera to clarify one detail. "Can I have a private 30-minute consultation between our general sessions?" he asked. "Yes, I have windows on Friday mornings," she replied. "It will help relieve tension. Let Laura know so it doesn't seem like a secret." "Of course," he said. That evening, at check-in, he told Laura about the call to the doctor. "Okay," she said. "I can take a short time, too, if there's a failure. I don't mind your 50 minutes. The two of them filled out a weekend to-do list. Saturday driving and pie at Brenda's. Sunday sorting through boxes in the basement and video calling Evan. On Wednesday afternoon, there was a small test. At 4:40 p.m., Laura received an email in her work inbox saying, "Escalation. Doctor's access blocked, urgently fixed." In the ticket, Scott noted, "Need a quick call for 15 minutes, administrator not on site." Laura looked at her watch and wrote to Paula, "Can you connect?" "Yes, in 5 minutes." At 4:50 p.m., the three of them connected to the general call. Scott briefly described a workaround showing how to restore access at night. At 5:05 p.m., they disconnected. Paula looked at Laura. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," said Laura. "I'm glad you're here. In this format, it just works." At home, Mia asked, "Are you late today?" "No," said Laura. "I'm making dinner, and we check in at 7. "Okay," Mia said and went into the room. David stopped by the studio at this time, left a printout on the table for his Friday individual consultation, and called Mark. "Yes, no night storms. The framework works. See you on Saturday." "Excellent. I will buy corn for the grill." At 7:30 p.m., they sat down again for 15 minutes. The conversation was shorter today. Laura noted that she hadn't opened her personal messages and kept her phones in the living room. David said that anger comes in waves, but it doesn't dictate choice. They discussed Laura taking Mia to the doctor on Friday morning and David meeting Dr. Rivera for a private appointment at 8. Then a normal workday. They exchanged short messages with Evan over video that night, showing him his room, the new sticker on his laptop, and saying he was going to the game on Saturday. David wished him luck. Laura asked if he had enough money and topped up his card with $40. Before going to bed, Laura turned off the lights in the living room, put her phone on charge, and went back to the bedroom. She wrote down her Saturday schedule on a piece of paper. 10 a.m. Mia volunteers, 12 p.m. driving, 3 p.m. Brenda, evening free. She pinned it to the refrigerator. In the studio, David closed his laptop and placed a note on top of the notebook. "Don't check logs. Sleep." It seemed simple, but it held the focus. He lay down, listened to the silence, and thought not about the past messages, but about the fact that tomorrow was a normal day. Work, check-in, dinner at Laura's house with Mia. David woke up without an alarm at 6:15. It was chilly in the studio. He turned on the kettle, did a quick warm-up, and sat down at his laptop. He had a one-on-one session with Dr. Rivera at 8 o'clock. On the table was a sheet of paper with questions. How do I deal with waves of anger? What is considered a boundary violation? What should I do if I have a breakdown? By 8 o'clock, he was connected. Dr. Rivera appeared on the screen. "Good morning, David," she said. "How are you?" "Stable. But there are outbursts of anger. I don't break down, but it takes away my strength. Specific situations. When I see the word it on Laura's calendar, or when the phone makes a sound in the evening, even if it's not hers. And there's the fatigue of waiting for something to happen." "I see," Rivera nodded. "Let's have 3 tools. The first is a short cycle. Notice a wave, take a 90-second break, change your activity, drink a glass of water, go outside, do 10 push-ups. The second is a risk map. Write down on paper what is a border violation for you, and what is a trigger, but not a violation. Hang it in front of your eyes. The third is contact with reality. Record 3 facts every day that confirm the movement. Check-in, no late-night messages, a joint decision about the house. This is not about complacency, it is about balance." "I will," said David. "One more question. If everything goes according to plan, when can we go home?" "Not until after your month apart is up," she replied, "and only if you have documented changes. The rules are working, no exceptions, and you both have the same understanding of what happened and what's next. In weeks 3-4, we'll discuss criteria." "Okay, and one more thing," Rivera added. "Don't try to be perfect. If you have a difficult evening, that's not a failure of therapy. It's an opportunity to go over what exactly happened in the next session." The session ended at 8:50. David wrote down short cycle, risk map, and 3 facts in a notebook. He put the paper in a clear file and put it in his briefcase. He wrote to Laura, "Was with Rivera. Discussed my tools. Will tell you later. Are you and Mia going to see the doctor?" The answer came immediately. "Yes, at 9 o'clock with Dr. Patel." In the family clinic office, Dr. Patel stood at the computer. A nurse checked Mia's blood pressure and asked about vaccinations, and Laura held a folder of volunteer forms. "Everything is standard," the doctor said. "Blood pressure, height, hearing, vision, no special features. I'll sign the hospital form. Mia, remember, if you get tired, tell the manager. School and sleep are more important than any shift." "I understand," Mia replied. "Are you okay?" the doctor asked Laura briefly. "I see you looked tired last time I visited." "It's better now," she said. "We're introducing a strict regime. Thank you for signing the form." "My pleasure." They left the clinic at 9:25 and stopped at the store for some fruit. Laura bought apples, yogurts, and bread. At the checkout, Mia looked at her. "Mom, I have a volunteer shift on Saturday from 10 to 1, and driving is also in the morning. Will we squeeze it all in?" "Good question," said Laura. "We'll move the driving to Sunday morning. Dad will coordinate with the instructor. We'll celebrate at check-in today." Mia nods. "It's more convenient for me. On Saturday after my shift, I want to sleep for an hour." During the day, David had an on-site inspection at the warehouse. On the way, he caught himself on the usual thought of opening an operator account and looking at the details, and then stopped himself. He remembered the short cycle, slowed down in the parking lot, got out of the car, did 10 push-ups, and drank some water. Returning behind the wheel, he felt that the wave had gone. At the warehouse, fitters were accepting a batch of profiles. David went through the checklist, took a couple of photos for the report, and left for the office. On the way, he called the driving instructor. "Can we move Saturday's class to Sunday at 9:30? He asked. "Yes," the instructor replied. "I'll write it down. I'm busy on Saturday." David texted Mia and Laura. Driving rescheduled for Sunday 9:30. Mia replied with an okay emoji, Laura with thanks. At the hospital, Laura finished 2 meetings by lunchtime and sent Paula the transcripts. At 3 p.m., they went to the administrator together to discuss access. In the middle of the conversation, Laura's screen on her desk flickered. A notification popped up saying 216. The phone was lying face down, as they had agreed. She didn't touch it. After the meeting, already in her office, she opened her work email. There was a message from Scott in the general ticket. Night monitoring plan for Sunday 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Need a contact in case of failures. Paula and Helen had already marked the message. There were no personal messages. She switched to work and closed her laptop at 17:10. On the way home, Laura noticed an unanswered SMS from 216 inches in the notification center. She swiped it and saw a short, "Are you there?" The time was 15:02. She had not written a reply. She took a screenshot and forwarded it to Paolo with a note. "Looks like it went to the wrong place. I did not reply." Paolo replied, "That's right, don't reply. I'll write him a ticket so that we do not use personal channels." Laura put the phone back in her bag and felt the tension in her shoulders ease. She knew this was the test, and she had passed it correctly. At 7:30 p.m., he and David checked in. He was in the studio, a notepad on the table. "In terms of format," he said, "what worked? A session with Rivera, no, night checks, moved driving to Sunday, did a short cycle, when thoughts started creeping in. What didn't work? I was overcome with anger at lunch, took a break, it helped. Where help is needed, I want you to tell me if there were any intersections in personal channels today." There was one moment, Laura answered directly. At 15:02, I received an SMS from number 216. "Are you there?" I didn't answer. I didn't open the notification. I forwarded the screenshot to Paula. She replied that she would write in the ticket not to use personal channels. And it's true, the ticket had a plan for night monitoring, without personal requests. David nodded. He inhaled, held his breath for a second, and exhaled, just as the doctor had taught him. "Thank you for telling me right away. That's the most important thing. For me, it's not a violation on your part, but it's good that you transferred it to the official channel. I'll also write briefly in the general chat. I don't respond outside of tickets," Laura added, "to set the rule." "Great," David said. "Saturday. Mia's shift is 10 to 1. Driving has been moved to Sunday at 9:30. Brenda's at 3. Is that okay?" "Okay," Laura said. "I'll drop Mia off on Saturday morning. You pick her up. Then we'll meet at Brenda's." "And the budget," he reminded me. "On Monday, the utilities for the studio will be written off. I marked the limit. If anything happens, we'll warn each other." "Fine." "One more question," said David. I started the risk map. For me, violations are a personal meeting with a contractor, personal correspondence outside of work, hidden payments, lying about the place and time. Triggers, but not violations, are the word, it, on the calendar, night shifts, work calls in front of Paula. Do you agree? "Yes," said Laura. "That's clear." They were silent for a few seconds. Laura took the list for tomorrow from the refrigerator. "Mia has a volunteer meeting with her supervisor tomorrow for 10 minutes at lunch," she said. "I'll ask to go to this window to sign the final papers." "Okay," David said. "I'll come by your place Saturday morning to pick up a toolbox. I'll grab a drill and a set of bits." "Okay, I'll leave it in the garage by the door." "And one more thing," David added. "Rivera thinks we should record 3 facts of the day. Let's have everyone name their 3 at the end of the check-in." "Go ahead." Laura smiled faintly. "My 3, I didn't answer the personal text message. We agreed on Mia's schedule. I closed the laptop at 5:10 p.m. and didn't open it. Yours? I didn't check the logs. I postponed driving. I went for a run this morning," he said. "Accepted." After the call, David went to a store near the studio, bought a simple floor lamp. The room became cozier. He put photos on the table, a small photo of Evan at graduation and Mia from a volunteer camp. He made a note in his notebook, 3 facts, and went to bed. Saturday started with a brief commotion. Mia couldn't find the badge they gave her at orientation. They found it in her sweatshirt pocket. Laura took her to the hospital at 10, and on the way they discussed that David would pick Mia up at 1 and take her home. Laura returned and started preparing a salad for her visit to Brenda. David got ready for the studio at 11, stopped by the hospital, and texted Mia, "I'm in parking lot C2. She came out at 1:05, tired but happy. "Today we were given toys in pediatrics," she said. "One boy cried the whole time, and then he calmed down and started showing us pictures. It was normal." "I'm proud," David said. "Let's go home. Brenda's at 3. Certainly. He left Mia at home and stopped by Laura's to pick up a box of tools. She took it out to the garage. "Everything you need is here," she said. "A drill, measuring tape, gloves. Be careful with the cable, the insulation is cracked." "I'll replace it," he nodded. "How's the morning?" "Calm down. I closed all the letters, made a salad. Shall we meet at Brenda's at 3? "Yes." He left feeling like the day was unfolding without a hitch or a breakdown. It wasn't a victory. It was just the norm they were both moving toward. They arrived at Mark and Brenda's at 3. The yard smelled of grilled corn. Brenda set out a blueberry pie, Mark a plate of chicken wings. "Good to see you," Mark said. "How's your week been?" "We're holding on," David replied, "according to plan and no surprises." "That's good," Brenda said. "Mia, how are you?" "I'm tired, but fine." Mia smiled and went into the house with their daughter to watch a video about dogs. The adults discussed Brown's games, gas prices, and plans for the fall. Laura was quiet, not holding her phone. She talked about training at the hospital, new nurses on the ward, and a report she was preparing for the board. "If you need a break, just say so," Brenda said quietly to Laura as the men walked away to the barbecue. "I'm right here." "Thank you," said Laura. "I'm learning to speak up early, not when it's too late." They parted ways by evening. David drove Mia home and went to the studio. At a traffic light, a message from Laura flashed on his phone. "Thanks for the day. Driving at 9:30 tomorrow. I set the alarm so you don't oversleep." He replied, "Okay, good night." At home, he wrote down 3 facts. No personal messages from Laura, day with Mia, quiet visit with friends. He turned off the light and realized that for the first time in a long time, he would fall asleep without thinking about the number 216. It didn't cancel the past, but it gave him a foothold for tomorrow. Sunday started off quietly. David arrived at the house at 9 to pick up Mia for her driving lesson. Laura had already put pancakes on the table and syrup was heating on the stove. "We're at 9:30, David reminded. "We'll leave in 5 minutes. The road is empty." "I'm ready," Mia said, picking up a pancake with her fork. "Will the instructor let you sit in the back?" "The first time, yes," David answered. "I checked yesterday." Laura put a stack of papers on the table. "After you, I'll go to the store. I'll buy groceries for the week. In the evening at 19:30 as usual." "Yes," David nodded. "Did the monitoring take place at night?" "Yes," she said. "The admin wrote the general ticket. No problems. I didn't get up." Notifications were turned off, as agreed. They finished eating. David and Mia got into the car and drove to the training area at the technical center. The driving school's white Focus was parked at the entrance. The instructor, a strong man of about 50 in a baseball cap, waved his hand. "Mia?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "I'm Harris. Get behind the wheel. Dad, back up. Hands at 9 and 3, foot on the brake. Let's go in a circle." They spent the first 10 minutes driving through an empty parking lot. Harris explained things calmly and briefly. "Mirrors, use your shoulder to look into blind spots. Don't turn the wheel with your palm." Then he led them out onto a quiet residential street. "The speed is 25, he reminded me. The stop sign means a complete stop. count to 2. David sat in the back, silent, watching Mia breathe and hold the wheel. After 20 minutes, Harris suggested lane changes and left turns. "Do you like it?" he asked Mia at the traffic light. "It's scary, but interesting," she answered honestly. "It's okay to be scared," Harris said. "Just stick to it, and it'll be okay." At the end of the lesson, they returned to the parking lot. Harris marked the card and turned to David. "Not bad for the first time," he said. "Home, walking around these blocks and looking at the signs. Next time, U-turns and reverse parking. Sunday at 9:30, I confirm." "Thank you," David said. They stopped at a nearby bakery for bagels and coffee to go. They sat at a small table by the window. "You kept your cool," David said. "I'm proud of you." "Thank you," Mia smiled. "I liked when he said, 'Look with your shoulder.' It makes more sense." "We'll write it down in a notebook," he nodded. "How was the week at school? Are they overloading you?" "In history, we have an essay about the New Deal. We need to discuss the role of the states," she said. "I'll ask the teacher if I can get some additional sources." "I can help with sources," David said. "I had a collection of references somewhere." They got home at 11. Laura had already put the food in the refrigerator. There was a sheet of paper with the weekly schedule on the table. She raised her head. "How did it go?" "Okay," Mia replied. "We'll practice parking on Wednesday." "Great," Laura said. "We have a video with Evan at 2. He wrote that they have a window today." "Okay," David said. "I'll go to the studio at 1, pick up a couple of instruments, and be back by 2. In the studio, David quickly packed his screwdrivers and bit set into his bag, checked the lamp he'd bought on Friday, and left the risk map sheet on his desk, holding it to a metal shelf with a magnet. He caught himself thinking about opening the phone operator again, and then stopped. He did 10 push-ups, drank some water, just like the doctor had taught him. He was home by 2. Evan appeared on screen wearing a t-shirt with the university logo, with his bed and a stack of books visible in the background. "Hi," he said. "We've got about 20 minutes to the lab." "How are you?" Laura asked. "Fine. Found a cheap laundromat off campus. Edible chili in the cafeteria today. First biology test next week. I hope I don't screw it up." "You can do it," David said. "Make a plan. We believe in you." "I see on the calendar that you're going to the lake at the end of the month," Evan said. "Cool. I'm happy for you." "We haven't canceled," Laura nodded. "It's part of our plans." Evan looked a little more closely. "Are you okay?" he asked cautiously. "I can tell from your tone that you've started talking more." "We're working," David said calmly. "We're seeing a therapist, doing check-ins. Everything's on schedule." "Okay," Evan said. "I'm glad you're not keeping quiet. If anything, I can come over for the weekend, but preferably after the first test." "You don't have to go," David said. "Study and live your life. We're managing." They discussed their class schedule, the basketball team, and a funny incident with their dorm roommates. Evan hung up, wishing them luck for the week. After the call, Mia went to write an essay. David moved outside to replace the cord on the drill. Laura packed her things for Tuesday in a box. She had a meeting with HR about the training room in the morning. A LinkedIn notification flashed in her email. "Scott Walker has endorsed your skills in healthcare." She looked at the screen for a few seconds and immediately took 3 steps. Turned off LinkedIn notifications on her phone, opened the site from her work laptop, clicked Ignore, and added a rule in the settings to Don't show notifications about skill endorsements. Then she took a screenshot of the settings screen and sent it to Paula with a short, "Disabled, just in case, I'm informing you." Paula replied, "Okay, that's right." Laura went out into the yard. "What are you doing?" she asked, sitting down on the steps. "The cable on the drill is cracked," David said. "I'll replace it and take it to the studio." "I got a notification on LinkedIn," she said bluntly. "Skill approved." I turned it off and didn't respond. I told Paula, "Just so you know." "Thank you," He nodded and put the instrument aside. This is exactly what we agreed on, to talk right away. Yes, said Laura. I don't want to play nothing happened. They were silent for a moment. A neighbor drove past the fence on a lawn mower. Mia looked out the window. Dad, do you have a marker? She shouted. On the shelf in the garage, he replied. At 4, Laura suggested going to the farmer's market to pick up apples and corn. She and Mia went together. The market was noisy but homely. An elderly neighbor, Ruth, was selling pies. I saw you at Brenda's on Saturday, said Ruth. Hang in there, boys. The most important thing at our age is to talk to each other, not to the wall. I've got a pie on order right here. Do you want it? We'll take the apple one, Laura smiled. Thank you. Mia pulled the bag of corn towards her. Daddy will like it grilled, she said. At home, they unpacked their groceries. At 6, Laura put dinner on the table. Chicken in the oven, corn, salad. At 7:30, they sat down to check in. David connected from the studio via video. He had gone there to put his instrument down and hadn't had time to return. About the format, he began. What happened? Morning driving lesson, call with Evan. I didn't check the logs, did a short cycle when I felt like going to the operator's office. What didn't happen? Tired by evening, just wanting to switch off my head. Where help is needed, tomorrow evening, if I remain silent, don't take it as a dismissal. Sometimes I need an hour of silence. Agreed, said Laura. What happened? The night monitoring took place without my involvement. I turned off notifications on LinkedIn and did not respond. The market with Mia, dinner according to plan. What didn't happen? I automatically reached for the phone in the living room twice, stopped it. Where help is needed. On Tuesday, I have a meeting with HR in the morning. I can be 20 minutes late. Will you cover for Mia, if anything? Yes, David said. I'll go to the office later. And my 3 facts, she added. Didn't reply on LinkedIn. Market day with Mia. Laptop less dinner. Yours? Driving lesson. Short cycle worked. Call with Evan, he replied. They discussed small household details, laundry day, phone bills, Mia's Thursday program. They agreed that David would still go bowling on Wednesday, even if he was tired. And one more thing, David said at the end. I realized I want to get back to morning runs 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Join me if you want, but no pressure. I'll try on Friday, Laura said. I have an early meeting on Monday. Okay. They disconnected. David sat on the edge of the studio bed and wrote down 3 facts in a notebook. Then he opened the risk map and added a line, social networks notifications off. He checked the box. After the call, Laura washed the dishes, put the corn in containers for tomorrow, and went into the living room. The phone was charging. She turned off the light and went up to the bedroom with a subtle feeling of fatigue, but without chaos in her head. Mia sent her a photo of the draft essay from her room and wrote briefly, Will you check the introduction? Laura replied, Yes, in 10 minutes. They went through a couple of paragraphs together, correcting the wording. Before going to bed, Laura texted David, Thanks for today. Good night. He wrote back, And you too. I'll call tomorrow at lunchtime. The house was silent. A lone car drove past the window. There were no late-night messages. On Monday morning, David got up at 6 a.m. and ran his new route for the first time in a long time. 2 laps around the block, a look at the water at Lake Avenue, and back. He turned on the timer, but didn't turn on the music. When he returned, he made some tea and wrote down on a sheet of paper for real facts. Jogging, yes. It was a simple marker, but he felt like such things organized the day into a coherent structure. At 7:20, he wrote to Laura, I was running. See you tonight. The answer came shortly, Well done. He put the phone face down, grabbed his tool bag, and drove to work. Almost a month of separate living passed. Check-ins were not allowed. Phones were lying in the living room at night. Work issues for Laura went only through Paula and tickets. David held runs on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and brought back bowling on Wednesdays. Mia got involved in volunteering, Harris praised her for her calmness behind the wheel. At the third session with Dr. Rivera, they took stock. "You've done the basics," Rivera said. "There have been no boundary violations. The next step is a decision to return under the same roof and a 90-day plan. I propose 3 pillars: a couple-time schedule, budget transparency, and a fact log on the refrigerator, plus a biweekly meeting at my place, then once a month. Agreed?" "Agreed," said David. "I agree," Laura nodded. "And one more thing," Rivera added. "At work, Laura should avoid roles with 24/7 availability. That will reduce the risk. David, it's important for you to have your own support outside of marriage, sports, friends, projects." On the way out of the office, David asked, "Have we met all the criteria for returning home?" "Yes," said Laura, "and I want you to come back. But let's make it clear, if something falls through, we'll take another break without any scandals." Agreed. They did go to the lake after all. They rented a small house by the water for 2 days. The journey took an hour and a half. No music, no news. The first evening they grilled corn, sat on the porch with cups of tea, and talked quietly. "I won't rewrite the past," Laura said. "What I did is my responsibility. I see how I was on automatic, always on mode. I liked being praised, and I ignored home. I don't want to live like that anymore." "I need you to have tough conversations," David said, "and to tell me when you're having a hard time. I'm not a controller. I'm a partner, but I do need clear rules." "Okay," she nodded. "One question, do you still love me? No fancy words. Just an answer." "Yes," he said, "and I'm angry, and I'm hurt. And at the same time, I see our steps, and I want to keep working." They went to bed early. There was no intimacy. They agreed not to rush this stage. In the morning, they walked along the trail, then showed Mia the house and water via video link. Mia sent a photo of her badge and wrote, "Next time we'll go together." They smiled. On the second day, before leaving, David said, "I'm ready to go home on Monday. I'll leave the studio until the end of the month, just in case. But I'll give you the keys, let them stay with you." "Okay," Laura replied. Monday night, dinner at home, check-in, and news for Mia. There was movement at the hospital, too. After Laura and Paula's letter about meetings in private, the contractor sent a formal notice. To minimize dependency, key contacts have been redistributed. The listing replaced Scott with another engineer. Helen said with relief, "It's even more convenient this way. We don't stick to one person." That same day, Laura went to see HR. "I want to transfer some of the night tasks to the training team," she said. "I'm ready to conduct in-person classes twice a month and be responsible for documentation. I can't handle the 24/7 work anymore." "Let's formalize it," HR replied. "We need someone for training. It will be a promotion in the role, but without 24/7." Laura wrote to David, "I'm being moved to training and documentation. Less night shifts." He replied, "That's what it takes." David's return home was theater-free. He arrived on Monday after work, bringing 2 boxes. Mia helped him put the lamp in the office. "Welcome," she said simply and hugged. A fact log appeared on the refrigerator, a small table for the week with 3 lines for what happened. The phones were in the living room at night. Check-ins were on schedule. The budget was hanging in a shared folder in the cloud with comments on who paid for what. The first week after returning, there was an overnight test. At 11:30 p.m., Laura's work phone rang. The admin couldn't log in. She looked at the screen and turned off the sound. "This isn't my shift," she said calmly. "There's a night coordinator in the chat. I'll write in the morning that everything's been fixed." David felt a familiar wave, paused for 90 seconds, walked to the kitchen and back. A minute later, the wave was gone. "Thank you for saying it out loud," he said. "I will speak out loud," she replied. 2 weeks later, they returned to see Dr. Rivera. "How's the house?" she asked. "Quiet and predictable," David said. "There are outbursts, but I cope. We keep a routine." The schedule at work is different now, Laura added. Scott's not on the list. I teach nurses. I get home at 7. Okay, Rivera concluded. For the next 90 days, the goal is to reinforce new habits. Intimacy only if you're both ready and without pressure, and write down a failure plan. You may never need it, but having one will reduce anxiety. We have it, David nodded. If there is a violation, there will be a month's pause, separate residence, and a meeting with you out of turn. We both understand that. That's right, Rivera said. And one more thing. Focus on the joys, not just the rules. Outings together, weekend plans, friends. Relationships aren't just a list of do's and don'ts. You need to fill them with positivity. The three of them began going to the farmer's market on Saturdays, then having breakfast at a cheap diner on the corner. On Sundays, Mia drove Harris's route. David sat in the back, silent as agreed. Laura led training sessions for new employees and was praised for her clear instructions. She learned to leave at 5:30 p.m. without looking back at her email. One day, already in November, Scott finally showed up in the hospital corridor. He was auditing another department. He nodded to Laura from afar, but did not approach. Laura told Paula, I saw him in the corridor. There was no contact. Everything's okay, Paula answered. At home, Laura told David about it. He simply nodded. Thank you for telling me. They spent Thanksgiving at Mark and Brenda's. There was turkey, potatoes, and cranberry sauce. The conversation at the table was about business and the weather. When the men went to get coffee, Brenda quietly asked Laura, How are you? We work, she answered, without big words. We have a regimen, therapy, and plans. And I changed my role now there are fewer nights and more people. It's easier for me. I'm glad, Brenda said. If things get tough, come to me alone, just to sit. Thank you. On the way home, Mia said, It was calm today. I appreciate it. We too, said David. Half a year later. Mia passed her driving test on her second try. Harris shook her hand and said, Keep up the good work. Evan came home for spring break, lost 7 pounds, talked about the lab, and showed a funny video from the campus. Laura gave an internal hospital seminar on how to train staff without overloading them. She was made the program's training supervisor for the year. David and Mark put together a small team for a charity run and ran 5 kilometers on a weekend. They didn't part with the fact journal. The check-in schedule remained, but now it didn't look like control, but like a habit. The first weekend out of town together, the three of them passed a short trip to Columbus to a museum and a game. Closeness returned not in one evening, but gradually, without deadlines or demands. They didn't pretend to forget the past, and they didn't return to it every week. They learned to talk about difficult things briefly, specifically, and on time. They had a failure plan, and they both knew that if the lines were crossed again, they would not fight but part ways respectfully, maintaining support for the children. But for now, that plan was in the just-in-case folder, and in life, other plans were in place. Lunch at Laura's with Mia on Thursdays, bowling at David's on Wednesdays, calling Evan on Sundays, going to the lake once a season. David wrote in his fact log one evening, We passed the anniversary of the crisis calmly. No symbols or speeches. Dinner at home, Mia laughing at the Harris video, Laura preparing a new training program. At night, the phones were lying by the router. We went to bed on time. Laura later added next to it, At work, a training group. No nighttime disruptions. At home, it's calm. And this is not out of habit, but because we chose to live this way. They didn't become a different couple. They became more attentive to what they had. And if something started to creak, they no longer pretended not to hear it. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.